Hello and welcome. My name is Sarah Birch and I'm an admissions and recruitment specialist for the Brown School. Thank you for joining us today as we share information about various student research opportunities. The Brown School is part of Washington University in St. Louis, which is a preeminent research institution here in the Midwestern region of the United States. And the Brown School supports transdisciplinary research initiatives that seek to solve some of the most complex issues here in the St. Louis region, in the nation at large, and in populations around the globe. Our students have the opportunity to be a part of a large body of leading evidence-based research in the fields of social work, public health, and social policy. And so joined with me today are current MSW and MPH students who are involved in that work. And so I'm going to ask each of our student panelists to please introduce themselves and briefly share the capacity at which you are involved in research here at the Brown School. We'll start with you, Aishwarya.
Hi everyone, my name is Aishwarya Nagar and I am a second-year Master of Public Health student who is specializing in global health. I'm originally from New Delhi, India, and I'm currently involved with two sort of research engagements. They're both research assistantships. One is with the Institute for Public Health, specifically in the Global Health Center, where I'm doing work mapping out the geographical distribution of global health work down here at WashU. And then my second engagement is with Dr. Laura Iannotti, who works with maternal and child health here at the Brown School. And I'm working on a qualitative maternal nutrition study, among lots of other things in the realm of global health and maternal and child health.
Hi, my name is William. I'm originally from Jakarta, San Francisco, and Vancouver. I'm a first-year Master's of Social Work student concentrating in international social economic development and specializing in research. I'm currently a Master's Research Fellow at the Involve Center, and it is an academic industry partnership with the Centene Corporation, and a lot of our work revolves around the social determinants of health.
Hi everyone, my name is Clive Msonza. I'm from Zimbabwe, and I'm a second-year MPH student specializing in epi-biostatistics. I'm also a Master's Research Fellow with Dr. Iannotti in the E3 Nutrition Lab, where we're doing like global health and nutrition.
Hello, my name is John Moore, and I'm a second-year MSW student, originally from Charlotte, North Carolina. And as I said, I'm in the MSW program in the mental health concentration and the research specialization. And I currently serve as a research assistant for the Institute for Justice Research and Development, which was formerly housed at the Brown School. And we primarily focus on, or my scope is primarily prisoner reentry.
Excellent. Thank you all so much. So we're going to dive deeper into the different ways that students can get involved in research at the Brown School throughout this session, and our student panelists are going to take the lead on that discussion. But if you have questions along the way, please feel free to submit those if you are watching with us during the live stream, and we'll be sure to address those by the end of the session. So I'd like to start by asking each of you about your why. So why did you want to get involved in research? What are you passionate about? And how does the work that you're doing align with your interests and goals? And I'll start with Aishwarya again.
That's a very nebulous question for me. I fell into research in my undergraduate career, and it just made sense to me because it satiated all this curiosity I had about how things work. And I had not been engaged professionally in public health before I came to the Brown School, so research was a way for me to get a practical understanding of the field I was entering. I knew it was research that I wanted my professional life to revolve around, so that was my why. This is why I want to do it. But it comes from an existential place of wanting to understand why is it that health problems are so pervasive in our society, what can we do to solve them, and how can we engage our communities while we do that.
That's great.
For me, I feel like there's a lot of talk about social injustices and social inequality. However, I always felt like I was kind of lost without some form of operationalized, concrete way of solving these issues. And so I think research is a really beautiful way to materialize a lot of the issues at large, and how do we actually create concrete steps in order to overcome these barriers, and how do we engage the community in terms of actually letting them disseminate the research and actually letting them get power and empowered. by the research findings. So I'm very passionate about community-based research and also transdisciplinary research in terms of health inequalities and social injustices.
I kind of like got involved in research like when I was in my previous degree, like as a medical student. But when I went back to Zimbabwe and I was practicing, I realized that, you know, in low-resource settings, there aren't enough physicians and there's need to always reach out to a wider population. That was the reason why I came to do public health. And also, there is always need like to do research, especially to do with global health and nutrition, reaching out to a wider population and seeing how disparities can be reduced, especially in my country. That was the main reason why I chose public health, to actually increase the skill sets that I have and to be able to reach a wider population.
So my why originated in my Bachelor of Social Work program. I originally thought full on I was headed towards a clinical career, but through coursework and then an RA position, I realized that my interest lied in the research hemisphere. I'm really interested in substance abuse research and interventions, and my experiences in the clinical areas there really fueled that interest. And I also recognized that my skill set was designed for research, and that was the way that I had the biggest impact to keep addiction sciences research moving forward.
Great, thank you all so much for sharing that. So now I'm going to dive into some more detailed facts about what research looks like at the Brown School and share some more information with you that can hopefully be helpful in kind of figuring out what it looks like to get into research while you're here. So at the Brown School, we have over 30 faculty represented academic disciplines in research. So from micro level direct practice to macro level policy design, the Brown School is leading research endeavors that address health disparities, income inequality, and structural racism. And this important work has been funded by $15.5 million in research funding annually. And this funding comes from places like the National Institutes for Health, the CDC, and other competitive funding sources. And thanks to this funding, some of our students have the opportunity to get paid for their research efforts. We have approximately 120 paid student research positions, which equates to a little under 20% of the total Brown School population. I did want to note here, we had a question that came in before the session about what it looks like when you're paid as a research assistant or as a master's research fellow. And all of those positions are paid at an hourly rate, and students are able to do with that funding whatever they would like. You can apply it toward tuition, or it could be used toward other expenses. And I'll talk a little bit about what that looks like for the Master's Research Fellowship, because it's slightly different, but all in all, everyone's going to be paid an hourly pay. And then, of course, all of these research initiatives are conducted in a multitude of ways. Many of them are through our research centers, and the Brown School is home to 15 centers in total. And the work done at our centers is transdisciplinary, it's highly collaborative, and our students have the opportunity to get directly involved in those. Here is a list of all of those centers, and we're going to dive a little deeper into some of these. As you heard some of our panelists mention that they hold positions at a couple of these centers. So we'll talk about them a little bit more at length. You'll also see at the bottom our community-based initiatives, which are here in the Brown School. Health Equity Works, which is an initiative led by Dr. Jason Purnell, and then Homegrown at St. Louis, which is led by Dr. Sean Joe. We also have a few key campus partners in research that Brown School students are able to get involved in. So from the Institute for Public Health, our School of Medicine here at Washington University, and then a few other centers, Center for Diversity and Inclusion, Civic and Community Engagement, just a multitude of ways that you can get involved in different centers that are here at the university at your disposal. Next, I'll talk about some of our student opportunities and what that looks like to get involved in research. So the first, and you heard a couple of our panelists talk about this, but it's a master's research fellowship. And this program is kind of selective, so there aren't a ton of positions every year. You do have to apply and submit your application after you've submitted your application to either the MSW or the MPH program. With this, it does pay an hourly rate, and it also waives your health and wellness fee. Another way to get involved is through research assistantships, and this could be with a faculty member at the Brown School or through research centers like the ones that were listed previously. There are also fellowship opportunities with campus partners. So if you aren't able to find a position within the Brown School, you can look out beyond the Brown School to other schools, departments, and there will be a non-exhaustive list of those fellowships on admitted student resources later on in the academic year. So we'll try to do our best to keep you informed on when those opportunities come available and when you can apply for them. Other ways are through independent study. If you have a research initiative that you're really passionate about and want to get it started, there are plenty of mentor opportunities and supports here that can kind of help you through that process. Some students are able to do research-oriented practicum, so in their field work, they do research as part of that practicum requirement for your curriculum. And then there are also special projects that you can get involved in as well, and so we'll talk about a few of these things once we dive into what our students on the panel are doing. Okay, so since we've had another panelist join us, Megan, and so what I'd like to do is just have Megan join by introducing herself and also talking about her why. Why is she involved in research, and what does that look like for you here at the Brown School?
Great. So my name is Megan. I am a first-year MSW student here at the Brown School, and I am one of the Master's Research Fellows. So I have the opportunity to work with Dr. Heather Cameron in our Social Innovation and Entrepreneurship Lab. And I've had the opportunity to support her work in a couple of different ways. I help her with our classes, look up some research. We're helping prepare for next semester's classes already, but I've also had the chance to work with a lot of organizations in St. Louis that the lab supports on various projects and things that they're looking to do. So it's been a great way to get to know St. Louis and work with a lot of students and faculty here at the Brown School and across WashU's campus.
And then too, can you kind of share, like, why did you originally want to get involved in research? What was it that really sparked that passion for you, and what does that look like for you now?
So I was really involved with research in my undergraduate degree, and I knew that it was something that I, had an aptitude for and wanted to figure out how I could apply it in my work as a social worker. And I, prior to coming to the Brown School, had experience with a few nonprofit organizations, and I got to see how having evidence-based data and research really helped these organizations not only serve their communities better, but also help secure funding to continue their work in the future. So it helped me realize that getting that data and having those, quantifiable things to point back to really helped the longevity of the organization.
Great. Thank you. So as we've shared, there are a multitude of reasons why folks get involved in research, and there are a number of ways that you can do that too. And so what I would like to do is kind of ask if a couple of you could share a little bit about, what your specific research position looks like, what your day kind of looks like in that role, and talk about the process that you went through to find these opportunities. And we'll start with William, if you would like to share.
Sure. So currently we're involved in a lot of different research projects right now. The one I'm working on currently right now is a state-by-state Medicaid policy scan. So what I'm doing mostly is looking at into different Medicaid policies within each state that Centene's a partner with, and kind of looking into the barriers to entry and kind of the requirements for holding your Medicaid status. And we're also doing some behavioral economics work and just a bunch of other things. There's a lot of quantitative and qualitative pieces that come along with the position, and also a lot of partnerships that come along with our work. And I think that's something that I haven't been really exposed to, and I think that's a really valuable experience and opportunity in research, because at the end of the day, the knowledge must be circulate and distribute it to the community. So definitely developing that partnership is very key.
Great. Who else would like to share kind of what their research project looks like right now?
I think I can do that. Basically, I'm involved in a couple of projects, and some of them. One of them has to do with nutrition in Ecuador, where they were looking at bone age. Like basically, there was an intervention which was done, like a randomized controlled trial, to see at what age was most optimal for the introduction of eggs in children. The project was done, I think, about 3 or 4 years ago. So this one is a follow-up, whereby they went to those children when they are between 3 and 4 years old, and they were doing like imaging studies, ultrasound on their hands, to see like if the intervention had any effect on them. So right now, as a master's research fellow, specializing in epidemiology and biostatistics, I've been involved in the data analysis and also some of the parts like the literature review. So there should be a paper which is up for publication soon. And also as a master's research fellow, starting from before I came to the Brown School, one of the advantages that I had was I managed to integrate my curriculum together with the research fellowship. So I was given a data set that I used for my one of my classes, which is applied linear modeling. So I've been working on it. I did the data analysis, literature review, and we also have a paper which is up for publication, collaborating with other students also and people from the medical school campus. So basically, in a nutshell, I'm working on those projects, and hopefully we'll be able to get them done, and there's more in the pipework to be done too.
And so, William, Clive, and Megan all have master's research fellowships, and I'd love to hear a couple of you talk about what that process was like applying to the fellowship, and then any advice that you would give to anyone who is interested in those positions, and whoever would like to start, if you want to talk about that.
I can start.
Excellent. Thank you.
So the application process, I found out about the opportunity through just an email from the admissions office when I was a prospective student. So keeping an eye on your email is definitely something I would recommend. If I remember correctly, the deadline was fairly early on in the application process, so getting your application in early is another tip that I would have. But the actual process, there were a number of opportunities open for students this year in various labs and research offices across the Brown School. So taking a look at all of those and seeing the number of opportunities that were available for MSW students, MPH students, dual degrees was really cool. It was inspiring as a prospective student to see all of the awesome things that we could do in our first semester here. And I kind of honed in on the Social Innovation and Entrepreneurship Lab, which is the position that I'm working on now, because I was coming from more of a corporate background, so I wanted to find a way to marry my corporate experience with my new career path of being a social worker and figuring out how to solve problems that were, social, like large-scale issues. And Dr. Cameron's work was a really great way of doing that. So as soon as I found that, I knew that that was something that I really wanted to participate in.
Hi, William. Anything to add?
Yeah, I think in my case, I was a little bit late, like in applying, because I remember it was like the deadlines were mid-February for Master's Research Fellowship. But the application process for international students, you have to do everything on time, especially the evaluation of your transcripts, and they were a little bit slower. But fortunately, I did apply, and they were considerate, and I was admitted for Master's Research Fellowship. I think it was I got a response like should have been in April. And from there, I think it actually made my life much easier. I didn't have to come and worry about that in September. I just had to, I knew I had somewhere I was going to work on. So it kind of like it was suiting my interest. I was interested in global health and nutrition, and being able to know that such an opportunity was available during the summer, like in June, July, I was able to talk to the research mentor and look at the projects that were available. So before I even came here, I already knew like what I was going to do. And it's not like it was a fixed thing that I had to do. Obviously, on a daily basis, there are things that you have to take care of that come constantly, like in a research lab. But they have always been supportive to ask, what do you want to do, like when you graduate, so that at least if there are tasks which I have to do with that, like grant writing or whatever it is, I would choose. So I've been able also to tailor my research fellowship so that I could gain the skills that I would need after graduating, so that I would be relevant in the professionally when I finish. I think that was kind of like the process I went through, like getting the research fellowship.
Great, thank you. And so Aishwarya and John have slightly different positions with their research projects. So I'd love to hear kind of from you, what did that look like, finding those opportunities, and any advice that you have? Because we had some questions submitted asking, what is the best way to get involved? Is it easy to get involved in research? And what advice do you have for folks who are kind of looking at that right now?
I think it's quite easy to get involved with research. It just depends when positions become available. Thankfully, our Career Services has an online portal where you can find opportunities within the Brown School especially. I had enormous anxiety going into this process because I didn't have the surefire MRF under my belt. I applied a little late. So my strategy was multi-pronged. When I came in, I visited every research center on campus, spoke with every global health professor to see what opportunities they had available. So it took a lot of time. And somehow, despite all that planning, I sort of fell into both opportunities. My Institute for Public Health opportunity I found when I was interviewing for another position, and it didn't quite work out. They went with another candidate, but they said, you would be perfect for my colleague at the Global Health Center who was looking for some people. And so that's how that opportunity, how I came across that opportunity, fell into it. And then with my work with the E3 Nutrition Lab, that's where I did my practicum this summer. It was an international practicum, so me and another student, we traveled to Cap Haitian, Haiti, and spent 2 months there working on a qualitative study, maternal nutrition study, and actually one of Haiti's first ambient air quality studies. So based on our work with that, it just made sense to continue it into this year, and so that's how I was hired with Dr. Ayanati. So yeah, kind of fell into those roles, but I would highly recommend. I don't have a thing. I don't have one specific area that I was focusing on. I kind of wanted to experiment with research here in grad school. So I would recommend having a vague idea of what goals you'd like to achieve, what skills you'd like to gain, but then maybe even a topic area that you gravitate towards, and then focusing on research opportunities around those. But definitely reaching out to your professors, reaching out to the research centers, and keeping an eye out for opportunities throughout the year as different projects get funded at different time periods. Would be my key tips.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. For me, I definitely recommend applying to the MRFs. I did not get one, which is okay. And I guess the biggest thing I would stress is once you get here, you'll realize that you can find your fit and find a capacity or role that suits your interest. For me, as a Master's Social Work student, I like to do the research specialization. That has been a tremendous decision that has directly translated to what I want to do as a career, and I've learned the skill set to conduct independent research. And as far as specific opportunities, I did a research practicum with the Institute that I'm now a research assistant, so I was able to get hired after that process. And also I worked as a research assistant for the Missouri Institute of Mental Health. A couple of people on that grant, on the opioid STR grant, presented to our class, and I was able to connect with them and secure a job there as well. So just be, I don't want to say creative, but just definitely explore in St. Louis as well and see what opportunities are out there. And the Brown School is a tremendous place to learn those skill sets and also to network. And I'll definitely think about the long-term fit too. That's something it's definitely influenced the decisions I've made. It's definitely worked out. I came here for the research opportunities because I recognized that was the trajectory I wanted to go, and it's definitely been worth it. So.
Excellent. And yes, networking is key. I also heard both of you mentioned these skill sets that you've been able to gain from these positions. So I'd love to hear Maybe starting with William, what kind of skills have you gained from projects that you worked on, and how do you feel this experience is going to help prepare you for the next step, prepare you for your career?
Well, thinking long term, I definitely would like to go for a PhD in the future and also do more independent research. And I think a very, very valuable skill that I've gotten so far at the Involve Center has definitely been thinking about what partnerships look like and how to develop that and sustain a healthy partnership with your community agencies. Just because, like you could definitely have like all like this like really massive amount of knowledge and like be able to like analyze it to like the crux of things, but if you're not able to like actually do anything with that knowledge and able to translate that into actionable policies or steps, then it's just going to sit onto like like in a bookshelf or whatnot. So I think definitely like very thankful for my mentors who have definitely like showed me the ropes of like how to engage with like people outside of like our center and really like do a lot of collaborative work. We do a lot of research with Duke University and just like there are a lot of logistics that are a bit challenging, but I think it's been a very fruitful experience in terms of like the partnership development and also learning more of the kind of like the academic language that comes along with research just by interacting with these different scientists.
And then Clive, would you want to share kind of some skills that you've also gained from your research experience?
I think I've gained a lot. Like, just coming here, I hadn't done like a lot of research, just done like a couple of student presentations in med school. But when I came here, some of, like I was saying earlier on, started with literature reviews and all that. But, I think you've heard some of the panelists here talking about collaborative research. Where I've also gained a lot of skills was like in our lab, there's research like they do collaborate a lot with people from the medical school campus. So there were teams that were coming here to collaborate on certain projects, and I've been part of it, like attending the meetings, doing the background processes that need to be done. And ultimately, that's how I got to secure a practicum for myself that I did during the summer, which was at Mallinckrodt Institute of Radiology at Washington University Medical School. So I've been also able to be part of, just what goes into grant writing, some skill. Most of the skill sets that I've done also have to do with my specialization in EP and biostatistics, data analysis, data management, presentation, and all those things, and also being part of, writing papers. I have a paper which is coming, which started as a class project, and there were some findings which were quite interesting, and we are working on it. Hopefully something will come out of that. So, all those processes where you're looking at, a research lab, where you're looking at grant writing, be it data management, the skill sets that you need for your specialization, and also collaborating, networking with people from, from the medical school campus, also different professionals. I think it has helped me, like, going into the future professionally, even after graduating. I do know I have some context that I can rely on, and also, work professionally with them.
Great, thank you both. So at the Brown School, we really value using research to inform practice and policy. And so much of the work done here is aimed to inform things like interventions, programming, direct practice, policy design, and more. And so I'd love to hear about, what are some of the positive impacts that you have seen being made on the communities that you serve through the research that you've been able to get involved in. And we'll start with Megan this time.
Yeah. So I think one thing that I've seen, I had the opportunity just a few weeks ago to go with Professor Cameron to a local organization and present a problem-solving model to a group of community fellows that they have there. So being new in my first semester still, it was great to not only see Professor Cameron teach, but to be able to equip this group of community leaders who were going to go out and create projects to benefit the greater St. Louis community, to give them this tool of how to solve a problem creatively and kind of break a lot of problem-solving norms. It was really great to know that we had, in a short afternoon, taught maybe 15 people, maybe a tool that they'll be able to use and reach the greater St. Louis community with that. So that's one thing that I've seen, but I'm sure as I can move through my position, I'll have a list for you. Yes.
Great. And Ashwarya, if you want to share some things that you've seen, impacts that have been made on communities that you've served to.
The actual community level impact was something I got a glimpse of this summer, but I will say there's a special privilege that comes with building an evidence base for something, because at the Brown School we have this enormous privilege to be a part of that, but the Brown School specifically focuses on translating their research into very, just translating it into policy, into programs, into action. And that's what drew me here to the Brown School. So the work that we do with the E3 Nutrition Lab with Dr. Ayanati, it focuses on developing interventions. So her focus is on reducing malnutrition in low and middle income countries through interventions like 1 egg a day, or through fortified supplementary nutrition, like the little fortified peanut butter snacks. And so the research that I did was all formative. It was all building that evidence base. So we were doing a lot of qualitative work looking at, is this an acceptable intervention to you? Would you use it? What are the problems that you face currently being a pregnant woman in this particular community? Or with our air quality study, we were talking with the families where we were installing our instruments to see what does air quality look like in this area? Does it need changing? What does change look like? So for me, a lot of my research has been very formative, building that evidence base with the intention of translating it into these actionable programs and interventions. So again, just that specific impact I wouldn't know, but then the work that our peers do in the E3 Nutrition Lab does focus on randomized control trials, looking at whether the community has been positively impacted. So my work, the positive impacts it's had, I think has been in contributing to the evidence base specifically.
Thank you. So we did have a question submitted before the session that was kind of asking about whether or not you can participate in research if your end goal is something like clinical practice. And the answer is yes. Getting involved in research is beneficial to students no matter what your end goal is, whether you intend to conduct research as part of your future career or not. And I'd love to hear, each panelist kind of share what you feel is the most beneficial part of being involved in research as a student, and kind of if research isn't your end goal, how you still feel that it will kind of play a role in what you'll do later down the road. We'll start with John, if you want to start.
Sure. I think the biggest, benefit I've had is just knowing that the work I'm doing is helping, the populations I want to serve. My first semester as a Practicum student, I helped develop a reentry wellbeing assessment tool that's being currently used in a randomized clinical trial. And so just, also recognizing that, that this work is important as graduate students. We are, a key role in all the good work that we're doing. As far as, long term, I think it's also really helped me, connect clinical practice to research. And I had some clinical experience before I came here, so I've brought that, perspective into my work. And a lot of the work I've done is really, definitely translational in the fact that, through the opioid STR grant, I played a big role in the evaluation that we presented to the Department of Mental Health. Stuff like that's very important. Impacts policies and procedures moving forward. So just recognizing that this is, as was previously mentioned, it's live, so to speak. This is, it's not theoretical. It's it's having a real life impact. So just recognizing that, and it motivates you even more to just do quality work, and and just remembering that the social justice impact at the end too.
Clive, if you want to share kind of what you feel is the most beneficial thing about being involved in research.
I think you were talking about clinical practice and those things. I think like I was saying, when you come to the Brown School, it's not only the curriculum that you have, you also have the opportunity to apply the skills that you get. But also in addition to that, we do have electives, and I was doing one of the courses from the medical school campus on randomized controlled trials. In as much as I was working on data sets which were, with data which was collected before I came here, I've also seen like how the clinical trials are run, and now I'm actually having a course on that. I think with my medical background, I'll be in a better position to actually, I'm interested in in going into clinical research. And I think the opportunities that I've had here, working like in global health and nutrition, and looking at the ethical issues and the logistics and what goes into designing and implementing clinical trials, I think, yeah, I've gained a lot of skills that I didn't have coming into the Brown School. So I think that's a positive. And looking at my background also as an international student and what I've been able to learn and all the opportunities that I've been given too, I think, yeah, it's been positive.
Great, thanks. So I do want to go ahead and jump into questions that we've received from our audience while this session is going. And the first one is, can students reach directly to specific professors or directly to a research center to learn more? And I'd love to have one of you kind of share that, your experience with that.
I'd love to
Yes.
answer that one real quick. Yes, which is exactly what I did. One of the experiences I didn't talk about was there's a professor here who works with gender equity and global health, which is exactly what I want to do. So I have pestered her every single month of my time here at the Brown School asking, hey, do you have any projects you need help with? Do you need help with anything on your plate right now? And it worked. We've been working on projects together. We've been working on doing literature reviews for some of the papers that she's writing. So you can come across experiences that way, where you focus on one person who does exactly what you want to do, and they can work with you on identifying projects that they're working on, or if not that, then projects that their colleagues are working on, or resources that they can direct you to. And then same with the research centers, you can reach out directly to them. And I am pretty sure they enjoyed that direct level of communication instead of parsing through so many applications on whatever application portal you apply through.
Yeah, they're not going to come to you necessarily all of the time, so it's best to advocate for yourself and reach out. Thank you. The next question is, there a cancer center associated with the Brown School, and how are the research in that area taking place? Any of you aware of cancer research happening?
There's a Siteman Center.
I think not directly, but I've seen that there are opportunities, especially for Practicum through the Siteman Cancer Center at BJC. Yeah, they have their summer internship that people can apply, and usually the deadlines are mid-January. I think if anyone is interested in that, they just go on their website and they start contacting various faculty that they have there. So yeah, definitely it's a possibility if someone is interested in doing that.
Yeah, and I would also say too, I think there are plenty of faculty, I mean a handful of faculty, especially in the public health program, that do have research interests that kind of intersect with that kind of work. So just kind of doing some research on faculty who are doing work that is related to what you're interested in, and then as Clive and Aishwarya mentioned, the Siteman Center for Cancer is in our School of Medicine, so look there too.
It's definitely Dr. Kim Johnson in the Epi Biostats program who works on pediatric cancer, and one of the public health students who graduated did some sort of work with her. So we have opportunities,
Yes.
At least one.
They are there. Let's see. And Christina Kenga is another one too. For research assistantships with the professor, this is the next question, is it best to reach out before beginning the program? What would you say? John?
I would say earlier is probably better, but again, it's not the end of the world if you reach out when you get here. So I can probably speak personally to this. I'm not someone who naturally is inclined to throw myself out there and blast emails out, but I've learned to do that, and I definitely, for anyone who fears that, don't be shy. That the professors are very responsive, and yes, by all means, I would reach out as soon as you're available to. But those opportunities will come too, and likely you'll come here and realize that there's projects involved that you maybe weren't aware about. So those opportunities are always coming in, and yep.
I think what I would recommend is, reaching out actually helps, going through the various websites and the research centers. Because what normally happens is, even if you're applying for Master's Research Fellowship or Research Assistantship, the faculty might not have an opportunity there, or they might know someone who has it, or if an opportunity, they're always applying for grants, and they get a new grant, and you've been contacting them, they're just going to go back to their emails, and you're more likely to get it. So even if you don't get it, I mean, there's no harm, but just being there and following up, like what Ashwarya was saying, that she followed up with one of the professors and she's actually working on something. So that's what normally happens. I mean, you have to reach out to them, they'll remember you, and they'll be able to reach out like when an opportunity comes. So I think that's how the process goes, because if you're quiet, no one will definitely know what you're interested in, and they might not reach out. But opportunities are definitely there. I mean, enough opportunities, I would say.
Yeah, thank you both. Next question, what opportunities are available to work with surrounding centers? So for example, a women's health center. I think there are some opportunities, certainly depending on, the faculty member that you are involved with or the research center. Can any of you speak to specifically like centers that you've been able to get involved with or know of, any peers that have been involved with surrounding centers? Or not? Megan, do you have some?
I think
yeah.
well, it might not be as like personally you would have to seek it out, but Practicum I think might be a good example. So as MSW students and MPH students, we have a certain number of hours that we complete with organizations in the St. Louis community. So if you were interested in doing something research focused at a women's health center, you could look through the list of Practicum sites, find a cool health center, and then approach them. Maybe you have a research specialization or something like that, and they can usually tailor a project to what you're looking for, so you get the most out of that experience.
And I think you made had a good example earlier too of what you did with Dr. Heather Cameron, going into the community and working with them directly too. So
yeah, there's a lot of cool opportunities. There's a lot of great organizations in St. Louis, and the Brown School has a lot of awesome connections with everyone. So those come up pretty organically.
Yeah, that's great. Next question. Let's see. Are any of the research assistantships funded through FWS, Federal Work Study?
I think so. On our career portal, there were several that said work study students. Yeah.
We got a definitive yes from our friends in the back. So yes, they are. And so those will come up through, as you mentioned earlier too, like on the career centers postings, that sort of thing. So yes, if you're eligible, you can find funding opportunities with research through Federal Work Study. Next question, do any of the research positions waive tuition for the master's program? So no. What funding looks like for the research positions is an hourly rate. And so anyone who is in one of those positions can use that funding at their own discretion. So if you would like to use the funding to go toward tuition, great. For the Master's Research Fellowship, you do get that health and wellness fee waived, so that kind of helps there. But for everything else, it's an hourly rate, and the funds can be used at your discretion. And then finally, where is the application found for the Master's Research Fellowship? Great question, and actually we're going to go ahead and switch over to a slide that's going to talk a little bit about the Master's Research Fellowship. So that application opens very soon, in a couple weeks, on December 17th, and it will be on the Brown School website. We will send out communication through the Office of Admissions about when that application opens, so just be on the lookout with email. And you will have to, as I mentioned earlier, but you will have to have applied to the MSW or MPH program first, and then you can apply to an MRF. And then by February 15th is when those applications will be due, and then decisions are released in mid-March. So you can go to brownschool.worcester.edu/MRF for more information, and a link to apply will be open December 17th. All right. So just to close, I would love to talk a little bit about, any last-minute tips that our panelists have, especially for folks who are thinking about research now, have maybe some time to do a couple things, what would you recommend our prospective students to do now to kind of help them prepare for research at the Brown School? Maybe William will have you share.
I think personally for me, when I first started my undergrad, I was actually a bit research aversive because I always had this inclination that research is not going to go anywhere. It is just going to be used within the academic community, and I don't see myself in that. However, when I started working in direct practice a little bit, I started to realize there are a lot of questions that came up, and I found out that there's so many things that need to be discovered, and there's a lot of intersectional issues at play, and that just like generated a lot of curiosity, and my curiosity took me to like this like long-winded journey of like going to like medical research, economics research, and now social work research. And I think it's like that kind of like interdisciplinary mindset that will take you to kind of go from like research to research, and I think in general, like just like having that strong curiosity and passion for like understanding a lot of these like more infrastructural issues at play, I think that's what really gets people into the door. I mean, you can definitely have like strong research skills with like quantitative skills, but I think at the end of the day, it's really like that deep passion for like discovery is what really will take you through.
That's great. Any other last like pieces of advice or just things that you would like to share with anyone who is interested in research?
I would just say that I think everyone comes here, I guess, with different backgrounds and especially related to research experience. And one of the things I've found beneficial is that I've been able to take public health courses through the research specialization, even though I'm an MSW student. Those have been very helpful, and so just thinking ahead about what courses you can take as far as if that'll benefit what you want to do in the future, and also to I guess learning how to demonstrate your strengths, whatever your background is, that you do have something to offer, and that you can build the skill sets that maybe you don't have experience when you get here, but just those are definitely some things I would consider.
I think looking at research, even when I came here to the Brown School, there were some questions I always had, like, how did they come up with these guidelines? How did they come up with this and everything? And the answer is always to research. You cannot just wake up overnight and say we are recommending A, B, and C to people or to communities. Especially in global health and nutrition, there's still a lot that needs to be done. But the question is always, are you using, like, the money, is it being used like optimally to, how can it be done and whatever it is? And some of the answers to those questions is actually going down and doing the research and seeing which ones are the best alternatives and everything. So I've been able, through research, I've been able to see, the benefits of research in terms of determining what policies are made in a given setting, and in also deciding which one is the best alternative, because obviously we always have different options, like in ways of doing things. And also seeing how guidelines are then decided, at national level, even at the United Nations. So being involved in research, you're able to answer a lot of questions. You are also able to ask even more questions, and that's how it is. And I think I like that part of research.
Excellent. Well, thank you all so much for everything that you've contributed to this conversation. Hopefully it's been really helpful for those of you who are watching live and anyone who watches this in the future. Thank you for those of you who are watching this live session. We really appreciate you tuning in. At the end of this, we'll put up some next steps for you along with my contact information. So if you have any questions about anything, actually I don't know my contact info, Sarah Birch is my name, sbirch@wustl.edu if you'd like to reach out. But thank you all. Please stay tuned for our next virtual info session, which is scheduled for January 30th, and we're going to talk about what it's like to live and study and practice in St. Louis.